Good evening, YouTube. Tire Metalhead Weatherman here. Hopefully, you guys are doing well. It's been an interesting week. A lot of snow, a lot of severe weather, but I have good news for you guys. This weekend is expected to be pretty daggone quiet, if you ask me. So, for one, not only do we not have severe thunderstorms in the forecast, there's no thunderstorms all throughout the weekend. Today is going to be quiet. Tomorrow is going to be quiet. Sunday is going to be quiet, which is great, especially for me since it's going to be quiet in Florida. I'm a huge NASCAR fan. I'm looking forward to the Daytona 500. I've been watching Speed Weeks all week. In fact, just before I started the video, I was watching the truck race. That being said, and I know people probably are not really too caring of my NASCAR fanboying or whatever, let's go ahead and take a look at the models. So here is the NAM. We are looking at the weekend forecast. I got kicked out again for whatever reason, so I'm going to have to go into loop mode. Just had to log back in on Pivotal Weather. Thank you. So it's going to be a very cold weekend ahead for a lot of us. A good portion of the country is expected to be below average all throughout the course of the weekend. So make sure you are bundled up. Some areas that are over towards the eastern half of the country here, especially towards the eastern seaboard, we still have some pretty blustery conditions. Wind advisories have been pretty widespread throughout a large portion of the eastern seaboard. I think actually Atlanta just got out of theirs, so I had to work in the wind all day, and that was interesting as the temperatures were dropping too. That being said, we can see our temperatures continuing to drop progressively. A large portion of the eastern half of the country is going to be below freezing as we head into the evening and overnight hours. Atlanta, Birmingham, Macon, Columbus, and numerous areas across the southeast are going to be dealing with below freezing temperatures into the overnight hours. Unless you are towards the southeast coast here or towards Florida, you're going to be dealing with some below freezing temperatures. There's a small pocket over here towards the Arklatex and a small section of Oklahoma that might be just above freezing. But other than that, pretty much all the country is going to be dealing with a frigid Saturday morning. The only area and then maybe a small section of California and Arizona and a small portion of the West Coast here, or all along the West Coast, actually, I should say. So across the along the course of the afternoon, I cannot get my words out worth anything. We do warm up quite nicely. We get up into the mid to upper 40s across the southeast. This starts to transgress across pretty much the entire country here. The only places that are slightly below average are mainly going to be based in the higher elevations. We see over towards Maine, we have below freezing temperatures. And then across Adirondacks, there's a small portion that looks like it's going to remain in the 20s. And of course, around the Rockies, we're dealing with below freezing temperatures. But other than that, warms up pretty nicely. Desert Southwest is the warmest area this weekend, dealing with a few 60s and a couple of 70s wedged in there here and there. As we get into the overnight, we do call for another chilly evening for some of you, although the below freezing temperatures aren't quite as widespread. Cold is mainly going to be stationed around the northern tiers of the Great Plains here, and of course across the west. Negative P&A setup is still relatively dominant in this situation here. Sunday we warm up a little bit more. We're starting to see those 50s returning across the southeast, getting some widespread 60s and 70s across the southern plains here, and a few 70s are starting to pop up even throughout California here, other than the higher elevations where we could be seeing still below freezing temperatures. Large portion of the west even is starting to warm up a bit. So we're seeing that cold air beginning to retreat up north and up into the higher elevations. And then, of course, as we get into the overnight, we see those cold temperatures pretty much remain in the northern plains and across those higher elevations. But the air temperature around the south actually holds up a little bit better. We're probably going to start to see lows into the 40s to start the week. So that's what we have going there. Then let's go ahead and look at any sort of precipitation that we can find, and also take a look at some wind gusts. For the most part, the precip is going to be relatively minute. as you can see, the remnants of our last storm system moving out here. See a little bit of inclement, unsettled weather over towards Maine, but this is already moving out as well by this point. As we head into early Saturday morning, do see a little bit of activity try to develop across New Mexico and western Texas, but not much really results of it. Do have to watch a clipper system that develops here across Montana and Idaho. Could drop a little bit of isolated snow. Beyond that point, this doesn't really seem to do too much here. This little clipper system goes through Wyoming, tries to sneak its way into Colorado, but it's losing moisture as time goes on. There's no real moisture flow to keep feeding that storm system, so it's just kind of basically, in this case, more or less snowing itself out. We will have to watch towards the start of the week for another clipper system that's a little bit more robust, that could be bringing increased snow totals over towards North Dakota, and eventually another system that could be working its way into Montana yet again. We'll discuss that more so tomorrow and Sunday, though. So another thing to keep an eye on is the wind gust. For the most part, like I said earlier, the strongest wind gusts are going to be dying down across the eastern half of the country. So the winds will be a lot calmer tomorrow for a lot of us here. We do have to watch over towards the northern plains where we have some higher wind gusts, where we're getting up to about 30 to 40 miles an hour. But this is quickly going to move out too. As we go through Saturday morning, we do see a little bit of increased activity over towards the southern plains, panhandle of Texas, Oklahoma, and parts of Kansas. Could be involved in some 40-mile-per-hour wind gusts, but just as quick as those move in, those are on the way out. And there's a new system actually that pops up here, or new little area that pops up here where we have some strong winds. It's interesting actually. I'm trying to figure out why we're getting such strong winds. It's a lot that I still got to study it. You always have to be a student of the game with this stuff. But it's a very large area here where we have increased wind gusts throughout the week. So for these areas a little further up to the north, it could be uncomfortable mornings for you, especially on Saturday and Sunday. And then as we head into Monday, the wind gusts start to increase as we head towards the southeast here. We'll see if these come to fruition. As far as the winds are concerned over here, I can see this verifying. Not so sure about this, but just regular wind is a little tricky for me. I'm not going to lie. I'm not a pro at it, so I'm still figuring it out. I'm really not a pro at any of this just yet. Still a work in progress. That being said, we're going to look at one more thing, and we're going to look at just how far above and below average we're going to be this weekend, given the fact that the cold is the biggest topic that we will be looking at for this weekend, which is relatively nice to say. It's not deadly cold either. It's not 30 or 40 below zero, which is really nice. But the temperature anomalies are still going to be pretty impressive across a large part of the country. When you get to about 10 degrees below average, it's still pretty notable. So we head into I'd say, okay, well, I forget we're on the GFS now. It's the only model that'll allow me to look at the temperature anomaly. But as we look towards Saturday morning, a large part of the country will be dealing, or the southern half of the country will be dealing with temperatures about 10 to 15, a couple of possible pockets where we could see about 20 degrees below average for the start of the day on Saturday, mainly stationed across the southeast. Mountains are going to be below average. There are a couple of pockets here where we're slightly above average. The highest number above average I've seen so far has been 15. And as we go forward, we kind of stay level for the most part, especially as we head into Sunday. We're leaning more and more into the average temperature. So a warm-up is pretty indicative, especially across the eastern half of the country. The negative PNA is starting to weaken at this point, and by the time we sneak through Monday, which I didn't really even mean to do, we can see a ridge starting to set up and much warmer temperatures ahead for a larger part of the country, actually. A lot more places are looking to be above average than colder than below average. But But that's the end of this video here. I hope you enjoyed this weekend forecast. If you did, you know what to do. Drop a like or do the double click, which is like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. I hope you guys enjoy the weekend. I still will have other content coming up, but some of you just really like these forecasts anyway. That being said, enough rambling. This has been Ty, your Metalhead Weatherman. You guys have a good night, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.